Licensed mortgage broker and real estate agent. Also with us today, we have Christopher Thornburg, principal at Beacon Economics. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Fred, you came up with this plan. Just explain a little bit more about it, if you would.
Well, a little bit of background. If I were to take a prospective owner out to a house that they see that's currently a foreclosure, we get in the house and, well, the sink is messed up, the toilet is missing, and you can't get a mortgage on there. So the idea is that only someone with cash or an investor who has some type of financing lined up, which is also a very hard thing to do, can buy the property, try to fix it up, and flip it to my buyer.
Right, but no bank wants to necessarily lend for something like that.
Exactly. The end user who just wants to move in and have a nice house can't do that. There is a program called a FHA 203K, but it's very cumbersome, and not everybody qualifies. So my idea is to have the government give the money to the banks to fix the house up with. Say they're in it for $100,000, they fix it up for $10,000, and they can sell it and get all of their money out that goes back to Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, or the bank who lent out the money. And we give the government back the construction money with interest. What it does is it starts getting local people employed. So you have contractors who are just sitting around doing nothing. You can now go to the local place that's selling hardware, etc. It just spurs the economy. Everybody gets everything back.
So your goal is to stem these foreclosures and to get employment back into the equation. Chris, do you think that that plan could actually work?
Now, you know, this is a bad solution for a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, realistically, we don't have massive numbers of foreclosed properties sitting there mildewing away for lack of a buyer. Out here in California, you put a foreclosed house on the market, you're going to get 2, 3, 4 bids on it. And you know what? A lot of those folks who go out and buy those homes are actually flipping them. They're buying them, they're fixing them up, and they're selling them off. And for those houses which just have a couple problems like the person mentioned, those don't actually count towards this idea that you can only have a cash purchase. Though cash purchase only purchases are for foreclosed units that are completely uninhabitable. For something with just a little bit of damage, it's very easy to get one of those FHA loans. I know 2 folks have done that.
Yeah, Chris, I think a lot of people would actually disagree with you on that statement that there's a lot of foreclosed homes out there, because all the numbers we look at certainly suggest that. And when you go to places like specific areas in California, I know I've been on streets in New Jersey where I've seen foreclosed homes, and it's just not pretty. But let's leave that aside for a moment. Chris, let me just ask you if this would perhaps in some ways prevent the inevitable. I mean, do we really want the government coming in and lending more money against these properties that got so inflated in value anyway? I mean, really, is there a systemic problem there that needs to be addressed, and would the government just get in the way of everything?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. You know, there's a reason the banks get rid of foreclosed homes in dilapidated condition, because the banks don't want to be involved in fixing them up, and the government certainly doesn't want to be involved in financing the banks to fix them up. The private sector can handle this. If there's a demand for these properties, and I think that goes to what you were saying, if there's a demand for these properties, there will be somebody out there who will fix it up and get it sold off to that person.
Right, and let's go back to Fred for a moment, because I know you're going to want to counter that, Fred. This is your idea, so defend the plan.
Well, the banks may not want to fix them up, but you could sit there and in the Philadelphia area, I can pull up the list of short sales foreclosures and all that have just been sitting for over a year, and you got to get rid of them somehow. And I think Chris is right. Some parts of California, it's great. Let's wait till after the tax credit expires on April 30th, and we'll see things completely change also. It's market by market, but the banks have to understand that they have to do something a little bit different than they've been doing. And the government is going to get paid back with interest, by the way. So I'm not, you know, I know that everybody's going to jump down my back. Oh, my God, the government gets involved.
And by the way, let me just ask you, Fred, I mean, there's a lot of political rhetoric that's really scorning the idea of lending any money to these banks, even if they are going to lend it to all of us. I mean, you just have to look at the TARP program, right, to know how angry people are that banks were being lent money by taxpayers. And at the end of the day, Fred, isn't that what we're talking about? The taxpayer essentially being on the hook yet again?
Well, let me put it this way. If a bank has a loan of $200,000 on a property that's worth $100,000, that they could get $200,000 for instead of getting $100,000 multiplied by X number of houses, and then they pay that back to the government. They're paying it back to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which for all intents and purposes are government owned. Let's do it. Hello? It makes a lot of sense.
I heard a big sigh from Chris right there, so go ahead.
I'm sure Larry Kudlow's having a heart attack at this point.
I can guarantee you Larry Kudlow's giving a heart attack, having a heart attack right now. But Chris, you take it.
Well, again, look, you know, if you go to a place like Detroit, you know, there's lots of foreclosed homes in Detroit and they're dilapidated, and you want the banks to fix them up, even though no one wants to live there, no one wants to live in those homes. The kind of properties you're talking about, there is no demand for. If there's no demand for the property, why would we force the bank to fix it up? It doesn't make any sense. The private sector can handle this. When there's a demand, and we know the private sector will step in, and I just don't think you need the government here right now.
Okay, we're going to just leave it right there on that note. I am sorry, Fred, but thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.